Hello, everyone. Welcome to Book Talk. And tonight I am very excited to introduce you to my friend Elizabeth Goddard, who, if you have not read her romantic suspense, you are going to absolutely love getting to meet her. I just finished Deadly Target about an hour ago, and it's her book that came out in November. And I love how intricately, I mean, there was just so much going on. And as a suspense writer, I could kind of anticipate some of it, but you kept me guessing until the end, Elizabeth. So that takes a lot to accomplish. So do you want to introduce yourself real quickly to those who are joining us?
Yeah, as you already said, I'm a romantic suspense writer, and I write for Ravel and Love Inspired Suspense. I have been writing since my first book was published in 2006, 2007 with Heartsong Presents, and I have written over 50 something books now. I mean, it's hard to keep up when you've got books coming out every year, and it's exciting and stressful at the same time. I was already telling you this already that I have a book due tomorrow, and so I had to pull my head out of that book and focus on Deadly Target for this. So
yeah, and that's a lot of work. I mean, to be in that kind of a brain flow where you're racing toward deadline. So is this the first draft deadline, or is this more of like a macro or line edit?
First draft. This is my editor will see the book for the first time tomorrow. If I get, it'll probably be later tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's due tomorrow, but I have all day.
I've always been known to go, okay, so if it's due on Friday, are you really going to look at it, or can I have till Monday?
Right.
And still hit the deadline, because you're a lot like I am, where you're like, I'm going to hit it. I'm going to make every deadline. So tell us a little bit more about what you write, because you write romantic suspense, but yet it's got its own voice and its own flavor that's a little different. This current series is set in Montana, but tell us what makes your books yours.
My books are adventure romance, if you will, but not only adventure romance, it's suspense with all of the bad guys thrown into the mountain setting, or, just some sort of beautiful nature setting. I love God's creation. And I love the mountains and the ocean and the rocky beaches. And I just think adding that into a suspense novel has a way of just, creating not only man versus man, but man versus nature. So are you okay?
I am. Yeah. Sometimes you forget how to breathe. And you're like, I've only been doing this for a long time. Sorry.
That's okay.
In this current series, you're up in Montana.
Yes. My first series with Ravel was set in near Yellowstone National Park, Grand Teton National Park, Jackson Hole area, because that's one of my favorite places in the whole world. So I just knew that I needed to set a story there. So when I started the next series, I just didn't want to leave. So I started Rocky Mountain Courage. It's in the southwest corner of Montana, which is the west gate of Yellowstone. So I kind of kept it close, right? And then I tied the characters in a little bit from the last series. So I love, open expanses, and I love all of my books set in wonderful, amazing locations. So yeah, I add the adventure to them. That's how they're different in some ways.
And they are. And sorry about that.
It's okay. I had an interruption too. So
in Deadly Target, one of the things that's really fun about it is it's set with copper and just all these, you've got dams and all kinds of stuff going on. So where did you get the idea? Because it also is connected to Boston. I mean, it's like all over the place.
Well, I just, how stories grow. You have, like, when I submit proposals for Ravel, I have just a blurb. I don't know if it's like that for you, but just a blurb, so you've got to, wow, I have to write a 90,000 word novel based on this one paragraph. So, you just start researching the area and just growing it from there. And, in the case of Montana, I just looked at all of the different things that are there. My husband's from Montana, he has family there, but
that helps.
All the different elements that I want to involve in the story. So, and of course, in Deadly Target, I start out in the Puget Sound area, which is where I live. And so I just, I had written that into the character in the first book. And so I had to bring her back. So, as you know, she had a reason for coming back to Montana, and then that's when everything exploded. So it's just a matter of researching and figuring out how to tie all the different pieces in together. And sometimes, we plot, but sometimes we don't really know how I don't know if, is it that way for you? Not necessarily knowing how they're going to fit together. And I really credit the Lord for that, because sometimes they just fit magically together and you're like, oh, wow, this was meant to be, how it all ties together. So
that's awesome. And it's fun because I've written books where I had the one paragraph, and I've written books like you did when we started with Heart Songs and Friends, where it was much more detailed. And Love Inspired's kind of in the middle. It's a little bit more of a plot, and here's where we're going, but there's still a lot of flexibility. And when you're in the middle of it, there really are those moments where you're like, now what? And so you've got, you make it sound like it starts in Puget Sound and it's no big deal and it's just a nice light little thing, but the action starts immediately with Deadly Target. And that poor heroine, you are throwing her into so much trouble. So is that something you plan to do? Are you going to do that to Alex in the book that's coming out in the summer?
Well, one thing with my books, and I've had readers tell me this, is that every book is different. So it's funny because they're the same, they're the same and yet different, if that makes sense. So really, I like to throw my readers off. I don't want them to pick up a book and know exactly what the formula is going to be. So I keep getting all these interruptions tonight.
Yeah.
Anyway,
what? It is totally fine.
Anyways, I'm not sure, and of course, the same readers will look at a book and somebody will think it's not much action, and another person will think it's a lot of action, and someone else will read the same book and think it's a lot of romance, and then someone else will think it's not. So it really, it's relative. It's, you come reading with your perspective of what you're expecting.
So when you're reading romantic suspense, what kind of balance are you looking for? Because your books really there's a lot of that man versus nature, or man versus like the elements, not like a Susie May Warren, but kind of that same feel. And then you've got man versus man, and then you've got the romance. But what's like your sweet spot when you are the reader?
I do love 50-50 romantic suspense. And that's, I love the romance to be part of the story, a big part of the story. That said, I will read straight suspense too. In fact, I'm reading a Baldacci right now. And, I'll just go all over the place. But as long as it has suspense and intrigue, and it just, and it makes me as a reader question, what is going to happen next? I enjoy it. So it doesn't have to have romance, though. That is my favorite genre.
So when you started writing Deadly Target, and this is a character that had shown up in an earlier novel, what I'm curious about is, did you realize, oh, I don't know her as well as I thought I did? Because that's often what will happen to me. I get ready to write a book and like, oh, I know this character. It's going to be so easy. And then I'm like,
I don't really know my characters that well when I start.
Because she was so fully fleshed out.
Yeah, exactly. I really, I can't say that I'm an outliner really, because I get to know my characters as they start living in the story, right? They start coming alive, and I get to know them living through their lives as I write the story. So she kind of unfolded that way. And of course, I had to do a lot of research about criminal psychologists and what all they could do, what all they could feel, why would they be doing this, and just trying to figure it out. But it's kind of like when you're trying to find the right name of your character. I don't know if you do this, but I will just try different ones on, or I'll be writing and I'm like, this isn't the right name for this person, and I have to change it, and then when it clicks, and this is who this person is. And it's kind of weird because or it makes this writer sound kind of crazy, because it's like our characters are alive.
Yeah, but it is so true, because sometimes I'll just throw a name on someone and they never quite feel right until you can find that right combination. And it's the same with career, and even things like where they fall in their family, and just kind of all that backstory that may or may not even come up when you're reading it. But as an author, I've learned I really have to go to those places, or my characters just don't feel right.
Right, you go by feel, and it's an art.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a comment that they want to know more about your writing process. So you've got, you share a little bit about how you start with a paragraph, and then you got to flesh it out. But where do you go from there? You do some research. How'd you even come up with, I think I'm going to make her a forensic psychologist. Yeah, that's it.
Well, it's interesting. The writing process is actually different for the two different lines of books. As you know, we have to write a synopsis for Love Inspired Suspense. So, it's a different process altogether for me than just taking a paragraph and writing a huge novel, because I don't bother with the synopsis because, it takes me just as much time. But in my head, I will start formulating plot points. It's almost like just a big lump of clay, to use that art metaphor again. And just, I start shaping, and then just defining. And I will write the rough draft. And as I'm writing it, I will start coming up, oh, this needs to happen here and this needs to happen there, and just tightening it up and shaping it. And then my first draft will be like 50 or 60,000 words. And then from there, I flesh it out. That's where you add all of and then really tighten up the plot points. And then I've got 90,000 words after that. So we make it sound easy, but it's very painful.
I mean, it really is. And one of the people who's listening is talking about how your characters come alive, that they become our friends as they live on our shelves. And it's so true. I mean, I was just rereading A.D. Henderson book, which I read it when it first came out years ago. And I'm like, a character popped up. I'm like, oh, I remember Rachel and all that. And there's something to it. And so your first drafts are 50,000 words for a 90,000 word book?
Yes. Very rough, very messy, but it's like I have to get the story down. And then when I flesh out, that's where you just start adding all the emotions, the feelings, the romance. You really flesh out the romance. I put in the details for like some clues or some of the really cool research that I've come across. All the details going, and then it just practically explodes and doubles the novel. So
oh, that's fascinating, because I like to write where it's more of my first draft is the draft.
Oh,
and
wow.
I try not to do too much having to go back and rewrite and re-edit. And yet everybody's process is different. So, I've learned the hard way that if I don't know my characters really well, by chapter 4, the book just stops and I have to go back and I have to go figure out, and it feels like I'm the psychologist with the character on the chair and like, I'm an attorney, so I'm like, that's so touchy feely. And yet everybody's process is different. And yet the books are all fantastic. So it's always just fun to see how it varies. So the book that's coming out this summer is the third in the series. And so do you find it easy to keep kind of the sequence going? Because yours feel more like they're kind of standalones with a few connections.
Yes. That is definitely true. And I find that even when I'm as a reader, I like to start a whole new story reading. I don't know why that is. So I tend to do that in my books too. I try to keep my characters connected, and I want them to go back and see each other, because I know that readers love that. They love them all to be connected. So, but they also love a standalone. Many people just love a standalone. And so I try to give them that. But yeah, they're going to see characters from the previous book. But yeah, the next book is completely different than the first two, and yet the same.
Yeah. I love it. Well, and I think because this will be the first one in this series where the hero's like the one driving the connection between the books, because with the first two it was the heroines who were part of the friendship.
And I actually I tend to want to write the hero first, but my editor likes the heroine to be first, so I try to do that. But actually I have the heroine, that the first scene is Alec's story, but the first scene starts with the girl, the woman, the heroine.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah. I'm the same way though. It seems like for some reason the heroes are easier for me to write, which
exactly.
That's a little odd.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah, you would think, oh, I'm a woman. I can write women. I can write the heroines. That'll be easy. And I'm like,
but they're not nearly as interesting to me.
yeah, that's it. Or for my last few books, all the heroines have been attorneys, and it's the guys who've had the interesting different careers. And so that's where
that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. So same for me.
Yeah. That's so funny. So what's your favorite part of the writing process?
I think that's so hard. I love coming up with or getting inspired for a series idea. That is probably my favorite part, you know. I'm working on a book that's due tomorrow, and it's a series set in Alaska. And so I was working on writing, I think it was Rocky Mountain Courage, when I started getting the ideas for, no, it was Deadly Target. I started getting the ideas for Alaska because my character in Deadly Target, she has the podcast for missing people. And so I came across Missing in Alaska, and I just started researching that too. And so it was just inspiration. So it was so fun. And so that's the fun part. It's not the hard part, right?
Yeah.
The hard part of coming up with a proposal and then, you know, taking that paragraph and expanding it into novel, and then another novel and another novel. So that's definitely the best part for me, is just coming up with the ideas.
That's so fun, because I think for some people that can be the hardest part, coming up with that new, fresh what if. And I've learned that, you know, if I have to come up with an idea or a what if that I can stay excited about for 2 years, because from idea to proposal to writing to editing to marketing and the book coming out really is about a 2-year process. Is that about what yours tends to be, other than like the Love Inspired books?
I think with Ravel, I guess it is. I write it. I spent a year writing it. I turned it in. I'm going to turn the book in tomorrow, and then it's going to release next February. So yeah, about, you know, I get 9 months to write it. So about that, yeah, something like that. So you're right. But in between, you know, before the book comes out, we're writing other books. And so our heads, you know, we've already moved on to the next book. So, but yeah, we have to be excited about the book and love our characters. And that's what I especially love Ravel's book covers. They have the most fantastic.
Oh my gosh.
Covers.
Yeah, you got to show it, because I've got it on my Kindle. So it's just not as exciting.
Okay. Yeah. This is the cover. And then the Rocky Mountain Courage. I don't have that book with me. And then Critical Alliance coming out in June, July is actually my favorite cover. I love that cover so much.
Oh, I'll have to look for it, because I bet it's about on pre-order up at Baker Book
Oh,
House.
it is. Yeah. And the arcs are already, they're already showing the arcs on the shelves. I believe people already have them. You know, they send them out to whoever's going to read them ahead of time. So I can't believe we're already approaching that. I feel like this one just came out.
I know. And I think that as a reader, I'm always like, why can't people write faster? I read so much faster than they can write. And then as writers, we're like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. And
there's so much more to it, yeah, than just writing the novel, you know, all the editing and the book cover and everything that I know they're in the process of this week, I believe, titling my book and my series for Alaska. So and then I will use a character out of my Rocky Mountain Courage series to go into the Alaska series. So, you know, I try to loosely connect them all. So
that's so fun. As a reader, I love that. It's so much fun. There have been several times where I read a book and I'm like, I think I remember those characters. And then I have to go back to the beginning and binge all of them, you know?
Yeah, it's fun.
It is a lot of fun. So when you write a book, you said you have about 8 months to write the book?
9. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then while that one's off being edited, then you're back to thinking at the next book or starting on it. I mean, how much time do you have between books?
You know, I say I have 9 months to write, and that's what they give me, but I am not writing the book for 9 months, because I write 2 Love Inspired Suspenses during the time that I'm also writing the long Ravel. I used to write 4 Love Inspired Suspenses a year, but writing for Ravel, I cut it back to 2 a year. So, you know, during that time, I'm juggling between writing those 2 novels and writing the longer novel. So
So explain that to people. Love Inspired novels and Love Inspired Suspense are the ones that you can find at Walmart, at Meijer, really Target, just about anywhere, Barnes and Noble, but they're the pocket-sized books. So how are those different from your bigger Ravel stories that are the long trade freestanding books?
Right. Well, I think you just explained it. They're shorter, for one thing. They run about 250 pages, and they have the Love Inspired suspense line has a specific formula, specific voice, and they're very tight writing, just like it, you know, the heroine is in danger from page 1 or chapter 1, and just, you know, it's a certain formula that you write. And so I can write those quite a bit faster. They're shorter, and then the longer novels, for obvious reasons, are longer, but there's a lot more freedom, to explore, the emotional depth, and just to get into a lot of details that there's no time to get into in a shorter novel. So really, I have some readers who read both of my different lines, and then some that just love the shorter ones, and then some that only read the longer ones. So there's all different kinds of readers out there, and it's an exciting time we live in because we have all these different venues for kinds of writings that we can do.
Yeah, I still remember when I was a teenager and I was reading voraciously, and it was like Bodie Tenay, Jeanette Oak, Michael Phillips redoing, the
very long, yeah.
Yeah, and Gilbert Morris, and that was like it. And then there was the small mail order one.
Heartsong Presents. You mean Heartsong? Was Heartsong Presents there?
It was before Heartsong, though.
Okay.
And they had a historical and a contemporary lines. I think Heartsong it morphed into Heartsong, but it was different. And so it's so nice now that there are all these different options and different types of books, and that, you're one of those who writes kind of to both those smaller, shorter, fast-paced books, as well as in these larger, more elaborate. They're more layered. It really is what it is. So you can have more going on.
Right, you can have subplots and a lot of time to really explore. And it's a different kind of writing, and it's a lot of fun, but I love writing for both. So
yeah, that's awesome that you're able to do that and have found a way to make it work to write both. Because some people, it's kind of jarring to go back and forth between the two styles. So when you think about layers, what's your favorite layer to add? Because even thinking about Deadly Target, you've got the hero and the heroine both have a past issue. And then you've got issues with each of them have an issue with a parent, and their parents have issues. And it's like all these layers.
I wouldn't say there's a favorite layer. I mean, it just comes out of me. What can I say? I don't know. I don't choose a layer, but my characters do have a lot of baggage in their past. I always have something going on in the past. I feel like it's a lot more interesting if there's something from the past that can come forward, something can happen. And a lot of times I like it to be between the two characters too, because in a romantic suspense, some people find it jarring for them to fall in love so quickly in a suspenseful situation. So for me, if they already have romance going in their past and they still love each other, then they can be thrown together in danger, and then the romance makes sense. So I like to a reunion romance. So that's really part of the romance trope that I add almost every time, not every time. So because I say all that, but Critical Alliance, no, I wanted to do something different, right? I want to surprise my readers.
That's awesome. Now I'm all intrigued, because I'm the same way with romance and suspense. And there've been a couple of times I've been like, yeah, this just isn't working. They're in the middle of running for their lives or trying to save the world. They're not going to stop and stare into each other's eyes unless there's that backstory and there's that attraction that was driven apart at some point, and now they're coming back together. Then it's realistic. Otherwise, it's going to have to be more subtle. And so I think that's so funny, because I'm exactly the same way. I'm like, I would never believe that as a reader.
Well, I want to say that I would, because I feel like romantic suspense is a certain kind of story, and that women do love even the fast romance. They want to see the romance, and we just throw a caution out the window or whatever and just enjoy the ride. And so I don't think that there's people who don't like the genre, that they're not going to understand it, right? But I mean, I've read so many books where the people just met and 5 days later they're in love, but you know what? It was done right. It's all in the presentation. I've known people who got married after 5 days. I knew my husband for 5 weeks and we were engaged. So,
That's awesome. It does, you're right. It absolutely can happen. But if it happens in every book, then I'm like, well,
right.
I'm suspending belief, and so that's where I think it can get kind of fun.
Right. Yeah. And that's why I like to do the reunion, but I'm like, I'm going to throw my readers a little surprise this time, and not do it that way, because
I can't wait now. As one of your readers, I can't wait to see what you've done with this one. Okay. So what is a dream location that you would love to set a book or a series in that you haven't been able to yet?
Oh Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, Alaska was my dream location, for Ravel. And so I am doing that. I would like to set a book actually in a foreign country or, someplace. My friend Lisa Harris she's written stories set in Africa, and I just think it's so fascinating. I've dreamed up some ideas because, there's so much you can do there that you can't do here, I mean, there's a lot of adventure and suspense that can happen because some countries, there's guerrilla warfare, whatever, there's a lot more of those kind of things that you can have going on that you can't do here. And that's a completely different kind of novel, but I think it would be fun to experience that one day.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that could be a lot of fun and it can really drive a story forward in an interesting way. So believe it or not, our time is up tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. And for those of you who haven't read Elizabeth's books yet, I highly recommend Deadly Target. It was a page turner. And even though it's part of a series, it really stood completely on its own. You don't have to have read any of the others to enjoy and appreciate what she's doing with Deadly Target. And then Critical Alliance, is that the name of the book that's coming out this summer?
Book three in Rocky Mountain Courage, yes.
All right. So that's when you can go to Baker Bookhouse or wherever and pre-order. I love doing that. I think it's just so much fun to walk to my mailbox and be like, oh, look what's waiting for me. I forgot I ordered that. So
I know, I love to do that too. Well, thank you so much for having me, Cara. It's been a lot of fun, and appreciate you doing the book chats and really helping us promote our books and get them out there and letting readers discover us. That's awesome.
Absolutely. It's been so much fun. All right. Thanks everyone for joining me. Come back on next Monday when I'll be back with Kim Duffy, and we are going to have so much fun. So thanks again for joining us.